to news for
I got the news. See you.
Thank you. Welcome to the 17th of July Council meeting. I will request that people put their mobile phones on to silent. If they have an emergency, please advise me, and we'll move forward. A statement of acknowledgement. Basco Shire Council acknowledges the Bunurong as the traditional owners and custodians of the land and the water. Pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging, for they hold the memory, the tradition, the culture and the law. Basco Shire Council embraces the opportunity to empower Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities in their diversity. Basco Shire Council will create opportunities for future recognition on respectful partnerships that will honour the traditional owners and custodians and Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. I'll request that Councillor Holstead read the Councillor's statement. Thank you, Councillor Holstead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. All members of this council pledge to the Bass Coast Shire community to consider every item listed on this agenda based on the individual merits of each item without bias or prejudice, by maintaining an open mind and disregarding councillors' personal interests so as to avoid any conflict with our public duty. Any councillor having a conflict of interest in an item will make a proper prior disclosure to the meeting and will not participate in the debate or vote on the issue. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Holstead. We have two apologies today, Councillor Letitia Lang and Councillor Brett Tassari. Thank you. Item 2, declaration of interest. There's no declarations. Item 3, confirmation of the minutes. The council meeting held on the 19th of June this year. Request a councillor to move that they be received. Thank you, Councillor Ellis, and a councillor to second it. Thank you, Councillor Rooks. All councillors, those in favour of receiving the minutes. Thank you, that's carried. The Mayor and Councillor reports will be as per usual. They will forgo speaking to the reports as monthly reports and will be included in the council meeting minutes.
Madam Mayor, I wish to speak to my report if that's at all possible.
No, thank you, Councillor Holstead, but I've deemed that they'll go into the minutes and will be made public on Friday. Thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor, may I?
Please, I've got a veil to read out, and then we'll be moving into Councillor.
In relation to this item on the agenda, Madam Mayor, through you to governance, may I ask the question: is there a local government act or clause in the act that forbids a councillor to speak
Madam
to the
Mayor,
report?
point of order.
Councillor, let's just pause for a moment, please. Thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor, the Local Government Act stipulates that councils must have in place the governance rules, which sets out the meeting procedure for the meeting. This particular item doesn't have a motion before council, and therefore it's at the discretion of the chair as to whether councillors can speak to the item or not. Thank you, Madam
Thank you.
So just to clarify, through you, Madam Mayor, to governance, there is no governance rule of council that disallows me from speaking to my report.
Through you, Madam Mayor, where there's a question to the Mayor or the Chair of the council meeting to speak and there is not a motion before the council to decide on, it is at the discretion of the Chair whether they accept that councillor's request to speak.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We'll continue. I have a veil for Murray Argent of Coronella. He passed away this year. Murray was born in 1928. He worked on the family farm at Lauriston, Guy Road, Coronella, with his brother Roy until he married Joan, and they moved to Bass, where they farmed and raised 3 children. On his retirement, Murray moved back to Coronella. Murray was a talented sportsman, especially in the local cricket teams. He dedicated his life to family and his community. Murray continued his local connections even after moving into his aged care facility in Cranbourne, and he was certainly never missed checking in with locals weekly regarding keeping up to date with the things that his news of the local area. So the veil is to Murray, and rest in peace, Murray, and condolences to his family. Now we'll move to public question time. Thank you, Ms Bowley. Could you please read the questions, and the CEO, Greg Box, will read the response. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Question 1 comes from Taylor Ling, and the topic is Rainbow Brick Road Report and the Gippsland Pride Initiative. Question 1. Can all councillors and relevant council officers please confirm whether or not they have read the Rainbow Brick Road Report?
Through the Mayor, all councillors and officers have access to the report.
And question 2, does Bass Coast Shire Council liaison with the Gippsland Pride Initiative? And if so, what do they liaison with them for? Do they pay money for this service, and how often does this happen?
Through the Mayor, Council liaises with Gippsland Pride Initiative and other key sector stakeholders through service provider networks when required. Council does not provide funding to the Gippsland Pride Initiative or pay for their services.
Question 2 comes from Ross Bencraft, and the topic is urban raids and drainage policy. Question 1. In March, CEO Box literally defined a smaller area as a single street or adjoining streets. Council's second priority is the Esplanade from Sunderland Bay Road through to Batman Avenue, where the Esplanade continues east. Using Bass Coast Shire Council's definition, how can this partial section of a street be considered a street?
Through the Mayor, the Esplanade is 3.5 kilometres in length and already has several separations along it that have defined upgrade staging for development. The section between Sunderland Bay Road and Glen Street was separated at Batman Street based on different drainage outfalls and levels of community support.
Question 2, does this then mean that potentially any whole street can be divided into sections, in which some sections are developed and some sections are not? For example, Anglers Road from Hill Street to Dover Street developed, while the section Dover Street to the Esplanade is left undeveloped.
Through the Mayor, any further street separations of projects will be reviewed on a case-by-case basis. Projects will ideally have existing downstream underground drainage infrastructure and a sealed street that it can be connected to.
Question 3 is from Susie Wicks, topic urban roads and drainage policy. The Urban Roads and Drainage Improvement Policy 2024 states where there is a high proportion of non-resident property owners in a designated improvement project area and it is difficult for the lead petitioner to make contact with the property owners, Council will assist to survey the property owners on request. Will Council apply the same support to those lead petitioners that are against a designated improvement area?
Through the Mayor, no. The policy has been specifically developed to focus on the upgrade of road and drainage improvement projects.
Question 4 comes from Louise Lyle and is in 2 parts. It's also regarding the Urban Roads and Drainage Policy. Part 1, 2024 Urban Roads and Drainage Policy. If a few people in the street do not want the works, will Council or other ratepayers who have launched the petition be required to pay as a goodwill gesture for the few, or are those few forced to pay against their wishes?
Through the Mayor, if a road and drainage upgrade project is supported for construction, then all property owners adjacent to the upgrade who receive a special benefit will be required to pay a charge through a special charge scheme. Council will also contribute to these projects based on benefits received by the wider community.
Part 2, the 2024 Urban Roads and Drainage Policy document has a glossary of key terms used in the document. However, the keyword urban used extensively in this document is missing. Will Council please explain the definition of urban and from what dictionary this definition refers to?
Through the Mayor, projects included in the Urban Roads and Drainage Improvement Policy 2024 are within townships and roads that have been classified as urban in Council's Road Asset Register.
Question 5 comes from Susie Wicks. Topic is Sunderland Bay Special Charge Scheme. Council has accepted 9 petitions from the Surf Beach Sunderland Bay area related to its updated roads and drainage policy and has prioritised 3 of the areas concerned for action. Can Council please explain the process Council has undertaken to validate the authenticity of each signatory to these 3 petitions?
Through the Mayor, regarding community-initiated petitions through the Urban Roads and Drainage Improvement Policy 2024, Council reviews names and addresses of petitioners with Council's property owner database.
Question 6 comes from Philip Davey and is a question in 2 parts regarding Sunderland Bay Special Charge Scheme. Part 1. Did Council state on engagebasscoast.vic.gov.au/surfbeachroads, FAQs, will the current scheme at Surf Beach and Sunderland Bay proceed in any form now that the majority of residents have objected? No upgrade project or special charge scheme will occur at Surf Beach and Sunderland Bay. Please answer yes or no.
Through the Mayor, the frequently asked question and answer only relates to the previous proposed scheme developed in 2023 that was not supported by the community.
Part 2, the project officer for Surf Beach Sunderland Bay Special Charge Scheme stated that survey works were required prior to voting for pavement testing and contaminated soil investigation. In light of the Wonthaggi contaminated soils fiasco, would council please advise of individual street CBRs and were contaminated soils found in the estates?
Through the Mayor. A sample of street soil pavement testing and acid sulphate testing were undertaken to assist development of cost estimates for the previously unsupported special charge scheme. Further testing and a construction management plan for acid sulphate soils was planned for during construction, which is common practice for coastal area development.
Question 7 comes from Ethan Beacon and the topic is affordable housing strategy. The Bass Coast Council adopted affordable housing strategy affirms that there is a serious demand for affordable housing. If a planning application can add 50 or more new homes, is any priority given to fast-track the application to aid in faster delivery of new homes?
Through the Mayor, all planning applications are assessed equally.
Question 8 also comes from Ethan and the topic is planning permit application decision. The statutory timeframe for a planning permit application decision is 60 days. What does Council consider to be a reasonable timeframe for a development plan endorsement decision from submission to a decision, considering the current urgent need for housing?
Through the Mayor, there is no statutory timeframe for development plan applications. Factors influencing the assessment timeframe include the quality of the submission, complexity of the proposed development and advice from referral agencies.
Question 9 comes from Graham Jolly and the topic is management of the YMCA. Why is Council preserving with the current model of management of the YMCAs? The budget indicates $2 million spending, 222,000 visits and only $8,000 of income. It does not appear a good financial arrangement for Council.
Through the Mayor, Council's leisure facilities are currently managed under contract by the YMCA until June 2025. The contract for the management of Council's leisure facilities will be re-tendered prior to the expiry of the existing contract.
Question 11 comes from Melissa Dagg and the topic is Environment Fund. Council has approved an Environment Fund. Council's legal advisor is Maddix. Biodiversity Legacy Limited is supported by Rendere Environmental Trust and a legal firm Maddix. A conflict of interest now exists between Council and Biodiversity Legacy Limited. Why would Council continue with this joint partnership having a conflict of interest?
Through the Mayor, Council have engaged Russell Kennedy lawyers to develop the legal documents for the establishment of the Environment Fund.
Questions 11 and 12 also relate to the Environment Fund and will be grouped together in a single response provided. Question 11 comes from John Trott and is in two parts. Part 1, Shire spokesperson confirmed $50,000 was provided to cover the costs of establishing an Environment Fund in collaboration with a private enterprise. Councillors stated the officers informed them no funds would be used for this project. Will Council confirm the costs outlined in the advertiser were used to establishing this fund? Part 2, will the Environment Fund established by Council in conjunction with Biodiversity Legacy Limited be used only in Bass Coast or will they be used in other areas as well after all this is a philanthropic NFP fund as outlined in the Council meeting of the 16th of June? John Warrilow, for question 12, Council approved an Environment Fund at the 19 June Council meeting. Council reports, page 81, the cost of establishing the Environment Fund are funded from the approved budget 2023/24 operating budget. What is the cost to establish the Environment Fund?
Through the Mayor. 1. Council's 2023-24 budget included an allocation for the costs of establishing the Environment Fund as a legal entity, independent of Council. To date, all costs associated with establishing the Environment Fund have been met within the allocated budget of $50,000. Council has not made any commitment to provide working capital to the fund once established. 2. Council's vision for the Environment Fund is to preserve and restore the region's natural landscapes while combating climate change and species extinction. The fund's activities will centre on Bass Coast, but not necessarily be restricted to the municipal boundary.
Question 13 comes from Melissa Dagg and the topic is statutory services. Please provide a listing of all statutory services Council must provide to its residents of the Shire.
Through the Mayor. The only statutory services Council must provide under the Local Government Act 1989 and Local Government Act 2020 are rates and charges and road management. Council has a statutory role under another 109 pieces of legislation and regulations.
Question 14 comes from John Kuzma and the topic is Land Use Image, Sunderland Bay and Surf Beach. What is Council's land use image, character, livability and lifestyle of Sunderland Bay and Surf Beach on Phillip Island? Please advise.
Through the Mayor. Under the new Housing and Neighbourhood Character Strategy, Sunderland Bay and Surf Beach have been categorised as being in a general residential zone with a Bush Coastal 1 character type.
Questions 15 and 16 both relate to the Canberra trip and will be answered in one. Question 1 comes from Mario Boffa. The Mayor and others travelled to Canberra in July and had discussions with a number of officials to the Australian Government. Please provide a listing of the officials' names, titles and their departments they work for. Question 16 came from Graham Jolly. 2 July 2024, the Mayor, Deputy Mayor, CEO and Council staff were in Canberra advocating for funding to a range of projects. Will Council provide an extensive, not summary, report to the outcomes to this extensive travel to meet government officials in Canberra over a number of days?
Through the Mayor. Council's delegation met with a range of people. A full list of representatives was published on Council's website on Friday the 12th of July 2024 and will be reproduced in the minutes. A report detailing meeting agendas and outcomes will be made available on our website late August 2024.
Question 17 comes from Gina Rosamilia and the topic is electric vehicles. The world has been extensively informed to the alarming method of mining cobalt in Africa by thousands of very young children. Cobalt is a major component for electric vehicles. Will Council continue to buy additional electric vehicles knowing cobalt is mined by the young?
Through the Mayor. Council, in recognising the concerns about cobalt mining practices, understands that research at a global level is being undertaken to minimise the dependence on cobalt by the lithium-ion battery industry. The transition to EVs is a major contributor to our transition to net zero emissions.
Questions 18, 19 and 20 all relate to the mayoral chains and one response will be provided. Question 18 came from Fred Morris. I have read multiple answers provided through the Mayor to the missing or stolen mayoral chain and robe that are diversionary answers with little substance. What currently is Council doing to resolve the problem of this very serious matter? Question 19, Kevin Griffin, Part 1. Bass Coast Shire Council has known for years that the mayoral chains and robe are likely stolen, but Council has not properly investigated this theft, nor has it adequately reported it to the police. Why is Bass Coast Shire Council unwilling to thoroughly investigate this major theft of property? Part 2. At its February meeting, in response to public question 5.3 about the lost or stolen mayoral chains, the CEO advised that councillors would receive a briefing on the matter. Will Council now transparently and honestly detail to the community the content of that briefing to councillors? And question 20 came from Terry Parkin. Council has reported vaguely to the subject of the missing expensive historical mayoral chain and robe. Why has Council failed to fully investigate in its own doing in-house to what might have happened to the expensive item?
Through the Mayor. Allegations that Council has not investigated the loss of the mayoral chains are untrue. There have been separate investigations in 2013, 2017, 2018 and 2020. There was insufficient evidence to determine whether the chains had been lost or stolen. The last known sighting of the Borough of Wonthaggi mayoral chains was in 2010. Mr Dusha is the last confirmed person to have worn the mayoral chains. A police report was lodged in 2018 but unable to be pursued due to a lack of information. An insurance claim was investigated in 2018 but unable to be pursued due to time elapsed since the loss. Councillors were briefed on this matter in February 2024. Unless new evidence is produced, Council is unable to progress this matter further.
Question 21 from John Kuzma. Topic is CO2 reduction. Council reported its reduction in CO2, 12,000 tonne per year. Council set a target of year 2030 to reduce CO2 to reduce the effects of climate change. What change is Council expecting in year 2030 when it reaches its target by reducing CO2?
Through the Mayor, Council is committed to playing its part in the global effort to transition to a zero emissions economy and safe climate future.
Question 22 is from Karen Thorpe. The topic is the Lord's Prayer and it's in two parts. Part 1, during the last council meeting, the Wonthaggi and Inverloch Interchurch Council sought clarification regarding the removal of the Lord's Prayer. The question was not answered. Your reply was that it's not required. So why was the prayer, which is linked with our national constitution and cultural heritage, removed? And part 2, the reciting of the Lord's Prayer is consistent with our Australian Constitution, which says in its preamble, we are a people who humbly rely on the blessings of Almighty God. Knowing this is a true statement in the Australian Constitution, what is stopping Bass Coast Shire from reinstating the prayer?
Through the Mayor, Council must consider modern principles of inclusivity. Our community is diverse, encompassing various faiths and beliefs, including those with no religious affiliation. The decision to remove the Lord's Prayer from Council meetings was made in 2014. Following from the response above, Council does not intend to reinstate the Lord's Prayer.
Question 23 comes from Joe Warrilow and the topic is planning application processing times. At a previous council meeting, a question was asked as to why it was taking 202.3 average days to process planning application. I now ask, why is it taking 168.3 year-to-date average days to finalise planning applications?
Through the Mayor, the figure of 168.3 year-to-date average days to finalise planning applications includes all planning applications, including those that are determined at VCAT.
Question 24 comes from Johnny Cantone. The topic is petition Carnival Council owned land. Would Council please explain as to why the petition I signed to have the Carnival Council owned land in Cowes rezoned from a farm zone to recreational has not been presented to the 17 July 2024 meeting?
Through the Mayor, the petition will be tabled at the August Council meeting.
And the final question this afternoon comes from Johnny Cantone. Topic is councillor expenses. Would Council please explain as to why councillor expenses for the current councillors is not listed as an attachment to the 17th of July 2024 Council meeting?
Through the Mayor, the Councillor Expenses Report went to the 15th of May 2024 Council meeting. The fourth quarter Councillor Expenses Report will be presented concurrently with the annual report in October 2024.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Ms Bawley. Thank you, Mr Boggs. We'll move on to item 6, is notice of motion. There's no notices of motion. We'll move on to item 7, petition, joint letters, deputations and correspondence. The petition 7.1, a planning scheme review, Gap Road, Phillip Island. Could I request a councillor to move and a councillor to second, please? Councillor Ellis and Councillor Rooks. Thank you. Councillor Ellis, do you want to speak to the petition?
Thank you, Mayor Laserve. I think it's mainly procedural and we'll follow the recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Rooks.
Yeah, I'm happy with the officer's comments there that that a transfer station is a permissible use on this land, so there doesn't seem to be a need to get it rezoned. And also that by leaving it as it is, we have greater flexibility with what we can do with the land. So I support those ideas.
Right. Thank you. Any further councillors that would like to speak to the item? No? Put that back to you, Councillor Ellis. Will I put the vote to the vote?
I think we should. Councillor Rooks has covered it in detail. I'm happy with what he
Those
said.
councillors in favour of the recommendation? Thank you. That's carried. The next item is 7.2, a petition for Dunvegan Crescent upgrade. Can I request a councillor to move? So moved. Councillor Holstead, a seconder. Councillor Rooks. Councillor Holstead.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Just wanted to make the comment that I think it's great to see this project progressing under the new policy, Urban Roads and Drainage Improvement. A terrific outcome for the residents of Dunvegan Crescent, who with the adoption of the new policy have taken up the option to pursue the sealing of their road that will address the amenities of where they live. So congratulations to them. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Rooks.
Yeah, and also just to note that, under their petition that they are willing to contribute. So that was one of the recommendations. So well done to that group. And yeah, good luck with working with council officers on getting something done.
Okay, any further discussion from other councillors? No? The Councillor Holstead, put it to the
Happy
vote?
to put to the vote, thank you.
Put it to the vote. Those in favour of the recommendation? Thank you, that's carried. We'll move on now to items requiring council decision, 8.1. Ms Taylor, will you introduce the report, please?
Thank you, Mayor. The purpose of this report is to present to Council a planning permit application for buildings and works at 2140 Currumbara Wonthaggi Road, Lance Creek. The application is before Council as the cost of works for this proposal is $24 million. The works comprise an expansion of the abattoir, new staff facilities, additional hanging, chilling and freezing areas and changes to the car parking layout. The application has been assessed and it's recommended that a planning permit issue. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Ms Taylor. A councillor to move, Councillor Holstead. Second, Councillor to second. Councillor Rooks. Councillor Holstead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Oh, look, I just think this is a terrific outcome. I'm really pleased with the recommendation by the officers. It shows a significant confidence in Bass Coast, and to be investing, you know, $24 million on top of what is already a pretty great facility, and a lot of work has already gone into it. I'm really pleased. This will help with employment figures, keep our local people in employment and keep them in Bass Coast. So well done to all involved, to those or to the business people who are putting their money where their mouth is. Thank you, and welcome to Bass Coast. This is fantastic news for our economy. Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Holstead. Councillor Rooks.
Yeah, just it's a great local business supporting our local farmers, so really pleased this is happening.
Yeah, thank you. Any other councillors like to speak to the recommendation? No, Councillor Holstead.
To the vote, thanks,
To
Madam.
the vote. Those in favour of the recommendation? Thank you. That's carried. Second item, 8.2, is the housing and neighbourhood character final documents. Ms Taylor,
Thank you,
please
Mayor.
introduce.
The purpose of this report is to present to Council the final Bass Coast Housing Strategy, Bass Coast Neighbourhood Character Strategy and Bass Coast Residential Canopy Improvement Strategy for consideration. Together, these three strategies provide a framework for accommodating housing growth across the Shire. Our housing strategy shows which areas within our existing townships will be subject to substantial, incremental or minimal change. Alongside this, the neighbourhood character and canopy improvement strategies highlight and protect the unique character of our townships. It is recommended that Council endorse the strategies and request authorisation from the Minister for Planning to commence preparation of a planning scheme amendment to incorporate these strategies into the Bass Coast planning scheme. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Ms Taylor. Councillor to move, Councillor Holstead. Councillor to second. Councillor Rooks. Councillor Holstead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Look, this has been one of my pet projects behind the scene. I've been advocating pretty hard for these documents. Congratulations to our planning team. Initially, when I spoke with planning about these documents, we were awaiting the outcome of the distinctive area and landscape, and I'm really, really pleased that the officers took the foresight to start the process anyway. I see these documents as critically important documents, and it's great that we haven't just waited for the outcome of the distinctive area and landscape, because I think it may have been lost on the Minister's desk. But as we are all aware, changes to planning regulations by the state have stripped back elected council responsibilities, which makes these two documents incredibly important in an attempt to preserve our neighbourhood character while addressing the housing challenges our community faces. Both documents have gone through a rigorous process, including briefings to councillors and community feedback. Again, I can't thank our strategic planners enough for the work that they've put into this, and I'm pleased to see that it's finally come to the chamber for adoption. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Holstead. Councillor Rooks.
Yeah, echo a lot of those thoughts as well, and include that a lot of work went into these documents to get them right, the research work and then getting it right and going out to community, and the community were quite happy with them. So both the principles and the concepts within the documents have been well received by the community, with just minor changes made to these final documents here today. And there will be further consultation that will happen as we go to the next step, which is try to get this into our planning scheme or framework itself. We'll go back out to the community and hear from you again to make sure we get it right. So it's great.
Good, thank you, Councillor Rooks. Any other councillors like to speak to the recommendation? Councillor Whelan.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Just a couple of words. Firstly, that we're getting a posse or search party ready to go out and look for the distinctive areas and landscapes. I think it seems to have got lost somewhere around Spring Street. So that's disappointing, and it's really good that the officers in this instance have shown the initiative to move independently of that process, which was always a strong reason to go with that process. So congratulations in that respect. And I did speak to the General Manager in this particular respect, that as this goes through, because some of their descriptions of areas and things like that are quite definitive in some respects, and we need to make sure that when they do go through into the planning scheme, they have flexibility to allow, for example, recycled plastics to be used for fencing things. They look good, we use it in our parks and those sorts of things. So just that we don't have the situation that has arisen in the past, a legacy of history, for example, on crossovers needing to be concrete and those sorts of things. We need to have flexibility that are outcomes based and not prescriptive. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other councillors like to speak to the recommendation? No. Councillor Holstead?
To the vote, thanks, Madam.
Put it to the vote then. Those in favour of the recommendation? Thank you. That's carried. 8.3, Bass Coast Fair Access Policy and Action Plan 2024. Thank you, Ms Taylor.
Thank you, Mayor. The purpose of this report is to present the Bass Coast Fair Access Policy and Action Plan to Council for consideration. The Fair Access Policy reinforces Council's commitment to gender equity and aligns strongly with Council's existing policies, including Active Bass Coast. The Action Plan contains a suite of actions aimed at helping local clubs to make participation in sport more equal for women, girls and gender diverse people. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Ms Taylor. Councillor would like to move the recommendation. Thank you, Councillor Holstead. Second, Councillor second. Thank you, Councillor Ellis. Councillor Holstead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to talk briefly about the exciting increase in female participation in sports across the Shire. From speaking to the local clubs that I'm involved with, that contact me regularly, we've seen significant female participation rise, and therefore this plan, this Access Policy and Action Plan, is a really important document to allow for that to continue to occur and for fair access across the board. Council has a role to play by investing in facility renewals, and facility users have a responsibility to manage those facilities in a way that gives that fair access. This policy aims to achieve exactly that, Madam Mayor, and it can only benefit all of the users of the facilities. So congratulations to all those girls who are donning on their boots and their shorts and their, whatever they're wearing for these different, footy clothes and things. It's fantastic to see the girls getting out there. So, fantastic plan. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Holstead. Councillor Ellis.
I fully support Councillor Halstead there. The other week I was over at the Daleston Footy Ground watching the Breakers in action there. It was great. They had an LGBTIQ Mardi Gras afterwards, and I thought this is built on the policies that we've been developing in this room over the last 20 years, I would imagine. I just point out that there's probably 10 policies that are all part of this that build up to it. I congratulate Bass Coast on the work it's doing generationally through the different councils and that, and I look forward to seeing more equity across the Shire as we go forward.
Thank you, Councillor Ellis. Any other councillors? Councillor Rooks.
Yeah, I'm really supportive of this policy. And I'm really pleased there was heaps of community feedback on it to help guide it. And I think it's not just giving access to change rooms and access to the fields, which are important, but it's also the behaviour of the different clubs as well and the people within those clubs. And that, I think, is what a lot of this policy talks about. It talks about the governance and the policies within those clubs, the equity plans within those clubs, and I think council as a leader, and we do very well in this area, is going to go to those clubs and help support the people to also change their behaviour, and I think that's a really important step. So I'm really pleased with this policy.
Thank you, Councillor Rooks. Councillor Whelan.
Just a couple of points that a couple of councillors have mentioned, the range of policies, but it's worth mentioning a couple. And I think one of the initiatives that was taken was a tad controversial at the start, I think it was the start of this term of council, was around equal prize money for women at events on council land. And it was something that copped a bit of attention at the time, but has stood the test of time and is a forerunner to what we're looking at today as well. And I give credit to the state government in this respect. I'll whack them where they need to be, but give them credit where they need it, where they deserve it, is in relation to the female-friendly facilities. And we've had a lot of money spent around, I don't say we're there yet, but a lot of money spent around our shire under that program that has made those facilities more acceptable for women to use. So I think there are a couple of things I'd just like to highlight, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Whelan. Any other councillors like to have anything debate this issue? No? Councillor Holstead?
I'd just like to pick up on Councillor Rooks's point about the governance framework and working with the different groups to build those frameworks is really important for the success of clubs. So I'm pleased to hear that council will hopefully be assisting in that role of setting those frameworks up and helping our community understand how to do things better in that governance area. So that's all I have. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Happy to put to the vote.
Thank you, Councillor Holstead. Those in favour of the recommendation? Thank you. That's carried. 8.4, delegation to award tenders for capital works programs 2024 to 25. Ms Taylor, please introduce the report.
Thank you, Mayor. The purpose of this report is to seek delegation to the Chief Executive Officer to award 2 road renewal projects from the 2024-2025 Capital Works program. These projects are Berries Beach Road between Ventnor Road and Ventnor Beach Road, and Grantville Glenalvie Road from Loch Kernot to Loch Wonthaggi Road. Delegation from Council is sought in order to ensure these projects can progress through the upcoming election period. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Ms Taylor. Council to move. Thank you, Councillor Rooks. Seconder, Councillor Ellis. Thank you. Councillor Rooks.
Yeah, thank you. I think this is just a sensible decision to be made. We don't want to hold up the roadworks that need to be done, so timing is important, and we don't want the caretaker position to get in the way. So support this recommendation.
Good, thank you. Councillor Ellis.
I concur with what Councillor Rooks said. I'll just point out that it's a lot of money to be spent on that Grantville Glenalvie Road, and I think it's important that the election doesn't get in the road of that. That work needs to be done. That's a vital link up in the hills there.
Sure. Any other councillor like to make comment to the recommendation? No? All right. Councillor Rooks, we put that to the vote. Put that to the vote. Those councillors in favour of the recommendation? Thank you. That's carried. 8.5, review of the road asset management plan. I request Councillor Ms Taylor. Ms Taylor, please introduce the reports. Just getting ahead of myself.
Thank you, Mayor. The purpose of this report is to present the final road asset management plan to Council for consideration. Council has 995 kilometres of road within our network. The road asset management plan demonstrates responsible management of this network, its conditions, and provides principles for sound decision-making regarding our road assets. The plan is one of a suite of plans that will inform the development of Council's asset plan and long-term financial plan. It is recommended that the plan be adopted. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Ms Taylor. Councillor Holstead has moved. Councillor de second. Councillor Rooks. Councillor Holstead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Gosh, this agenda's really packed full of good stuff this week to do with, obviously, roads, infrastructure and facilities. It's all the stuff I love to see. So thank you to the team for putting it before us. As one of the 3 Rs, the state of our roads is a regular issue of concern raised in the community. I question the road condition assessment percentages described as good to very good, but we'll leave that be anyway. However, I'm really thankful to see the amount of work that officers have committed in bringing this plan before council. There is no doubt that the community's been crying out for further investment into both roads and infrastructure, which is why I'm having a field day today, because this agenda seems to be full of all of that stuff, which is great. Today's not the day where extra funding can be decided, but it is obvious that significantly more funding needs to be committed in the next round of budget talks. I'm really hopeful that that will be considered and that, you know, we will see investment and actually need more investment in our roads and in our infrastructure. So I'm, as I say, jumping out of my skin. Sorry, that's probably the nerd in me, but well done to the team on this one. Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Rooks.
We saw a great presentation from the Asset team recently on this. They do the best presentations. I've mentioned that before. And we did get to see the full current status of our road network. And we also looked at future scenarios and what it would look like under different budget spending. We also got to see what the impacts of climate change and what that can do to our roads as well, and those different scenarios. So it was an awesome presentation that we got. And there's recommendations in there, what they see as the best option. And as Councillor Halstead said, that next year when we do our long-term financial plan, those decisions will be made on what level of spending goes towards our roads. So,
very good.
Great report, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rooks. Any other councillors like to speak to the recommendation? No? Councillor Halstead?
Happy to put to the vote, thank you.
Put that to the vote. Those in favour of the recommendation? Thank you. Those against? No? I didn't see Councillor.
His hand was up.
Was it up? Yep. Okay, thank you. That's carried. Okay, 8.6, response to petition for the LGBTIQA+ Advisory Committee. Mr Woodland, will you please introduce the report?
Thank you, Mayor. This report responds to a petition received at the 20th of March 2024 meeting requesting that Council explore options for continuing engagement with the LGBTIQA+ community, including exploring establishment of a dedicated LGBTIQA+ advisory committee. Council delivers a broad range of initiatives and programs to support the LGBTIQA+ engagement and inclusion aligned to Council's adopted planning framework. These plans were all adopted in 2021 and drive engagement with the LGBTIQA+ communities, and they are strongly aligned to the recommendations of this petition. These plans are scheduled for review in 2025, so the report recommends that Council continue to deliver the range of inclusion activities and programs currently underway through the current plans, and consider opportunities to further strengthen engagement with LGBTIQA+ communities through the development of Council's next Municipal Public Health and Wellbeing Plan.
Good, thank you, Mr Woodland. Can I have a councillor to move the recommendation? Councillor Ellis, thank you. A seconder? Councillor Rooks. Thank you, Councillor Ellis.
Thank you. I was just thinking back. I take great pride in the fact that I was a member of SKIN, the South Coast Inclusion Network, which was the council-supported advisory committee from 2016 to 2020. We did a lot of work with the community about the stuff that was brought in that our officer mentioned in 2021. SKIN then disbanded, not thinking that its work was done, but being tired from 4 years in the front line. I think council has carried on very strongly from then. I can see that we need to re-establish some sort of committee that actually interacts on a regular basis with the community, not just on special occasions. I think we do a lot of great work. Ida Hobbit, fantastic, never seen anything better. Obviously there's more work to be done. I agree with the petitioners to a certain extent. And I've been talking to our friend Sally, who some people in this room may remember, and she is fairly strongly in support of us getting further involved with the Gippsland Pride initiative, even if that becomes something we actually become a paying member of. But at the moment I'm happy with the recommendations. I think they're a great way forward. I support the motion.
Good, thank you, Councillor Ellis. Councillor Rooks.
Just thank you to Councillor Ellis for your continued support and interest in this area, and I fully support this recommendation.
Okay, any further councillors like to have any further discussion? Thank you, Councillor Holstead.
Madam Mayor, I'm really happy to support this recommendation, and I'm particularly happy that officers have mentioned the Municipal Public Health and Wellbeing Plan. My concern would be around putting together a separate committee. The reason I have these concerns about having separate this and separate that, and I know that this sort of upsets a lot of people, I see by having separate entities and groups for different groups as being quite divisive. I don't see it actually brings our community together, and I really truly believe that, and maybe it's just the circles that I move in, that the community are accepting of, or the people that I associate with are all accepting of all people, of all colour, of all sexuality, of all gender. And just with the continual I see it as segregating with different committee groups, to me that's a divisive way of approaching it. I stand to be corrected and educated on the issue if I'm making the wrong move here. But I just want to look at our community as one instead of all these different groups with different, ideas. The LGBTQI plus community are always welcome in this council chamber, as is the rest of the community. I would love to see people from all parts of our community sitting in this chamber asking questions of council, being involved as one big group. We're all together in it, and let's just ease up on the segregating by pointing these things out. I'm sorry, Madam Mayor, but that's just how I feel, and I think a lot of the community out there feel the same way, and it needed to be said. So thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Holstead. Is there any other councillors who would like to make comment to the recommendation? Councillor Whelan.
I'd ask the audience should keep its comments to itself. The reason that this is before council is because the people involved in this part of the community have put it to us in a petition, and that needs to be taken into account because clearly they don't see it the way Councillor Holstead does. I appreciate where she's coming from, and that would be the ideal situation, but clearly these people don't see it that way. And that's the issue of being a minority, is that it's hard to see through a minority's eyes when you're not part of that minority. And I think that's why the ability for them to advise us closely is a really important thing to consider. Won't be something I'll be participating in the consideration of, but going forward, we need everyone in our community. I accept the sentiment in that respect. Everyone in our community should feel included and able to participate. But as I think the symptom is quite clear at this point in time that the people in that minority don't see it that way, that in fact they have that voice.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Whelan. Any other councillors like to speak to the recommendation? No, Councillor Ellis.
I take on board what you said there, Councillor Rochelle. I know a lot of people that would agree with you. I know some people that would disagree with you. And I think that's one of the reasons why we have, say, I'm the delegated councillor on the reconciliation group as well. So I think there is a need for further inclusion. I feel that people are very welcome to come here, whoever they are, whenever they want to be here. I think we've done great work in making everybody able to come to work and be their authentic self. There's a lot of policies that we developed, and I'd say over the last 4 or 5 years, particularly under Ali Wasty, and also I'm sure Greg will carry on these things, that it's very easy to be your real self in this room. It wasn't always that way. I fully recommend the recommendation, and I hear what people are saying.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Ellis. We put that to the vote. Those who are in favour of the recommendation. Thank you. Councillor, his hand is up. Thank you. That's carried. Thank you very much. Okay. 8.7, the Bass Coast Financial Hardship Policy. Ms Borley, will you please introduce the report?
Thank you, Mayor. This report presents the draft hardship and financial hardship policy to Council for adoption, superseding the previous financial hardship policy and the COVID-19 financial hardship policy. The policy addresses sector feedback from the Victorian Ombudsman and the draft 2023 ministerial guidelines and provides for a more empathetic approach to supporting ratepayers experiencing hardship. It's recommended that Council adopt the hardship and financial hardship policy. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Ms Borley. Councillor to move the recommendation. Councillor Ellis, seconder. Councillor Rooks, thank you. Councillor Ellis. Would you?
Given the cost of living pressures that we're under at the moment, the lack of growth in wages and conditions around here, the increasing number of people that are on, what's the word for it, tenuous employment. A lot of people don't know where their next monthly payment on the house is coming from. I know myself, our mortgage is starting to press us a little bit too, and we were, several years ago, would never have thought we would have to start worrying about paying the rates in instalments and that. I think it's very important that we have an accessible hardship policy for the people that are feeling the strain, and I think that could end up being everybody in the Shire at some stage. I fully support the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Ellis. Councillor Rooks.
I think Councillor Ellis has covered most of it. I like the word empathetic that Ms Borley used, and I think this policy does that. There's 2 points in it which I really like the look of. Once we were charging for interest for those people that still had payments owing, and I found that difficult to swallow, so I'm really glad that that's disappeared. And we also can consider rate waivers now as well under special circumstances, so I think it's a good policy.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Rooks. Any other councillors like to speak to the recommendation? Is that Councillor Lark? Yeah, thank you, Councillor Lark.
Yes, it is. Thank you. I would just like an officer to explain the difference between financial hardship and hardship and how that applies under the policy.
Ms Borley, are you able to take that on?
Thank you, Mayor. Through you, Madam Mayor. While they're linked, they are slightly different. So financial hardship refers to the ability to pay the rates and only looks at your financial component. The hardship is a little bit more broad and looks at other circumstances that might contribute to your ability to generate that income. So it's just a broader definition. So it's bringing that out, expanding that out a little bit. So it might consider illness or long-term impact to illness and other things that might impact your ability to pay your rates.
Such as domestic violence, etc., would be covered under that?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lark. Any other councillors like to speak to the recommendation?
Oh, Madam Mayor, I
Councillor
will.
Holstead.
I just feel it's a really sad thing that we have to have such a policy in today's day and age, but it's unfortunate cost of living and I guess government's being a bit too free with money that we're giving them. Lately, through the news, we've seen how that's been happening and that has a massive impact on local communities. You know, we're working, majority of the people on the ground in our Shire are working tirelessly and paying their taxes, and for what's been going on is just heartbreaking. So to have this hardship policy is necessary, and I just wish it wasn't necessary to have it, but fully support what the policy stands for. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Holstead. Any other further discussion from councillors? No? If not, Councillor Ellis.
Thank you, Mayor Lasserve. I just want to thank Councillor Lark for bringing that question to us. I think that's very important that we consider not only the economics of it, but the social structure and the family structures that we live within. I think that's very important that we're a caring community as council as well as being an economically sound one. And I'll just say that as from what I've seen within side of council in the last 11 months, there's no ratepayer money wasted. We're not squandering the rates and that. We're trying to keep the costs as low as we possibly can. And I admire the way our council people are doing that. I recommend the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Ellis. We'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? Yeah, thank you. That's carried. 8.8, the Audit and Risk Committee. Ms Borley, will you introduce the report, please?
Thank you, Mayor. This report recommends that Mr Goran Matrevsky be appointed as the Chair of the Audit and Risk Committee for a further 12 months, concluding 30 May 2025. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Ms Borley. Councillor to move, Councillor Holstead. Councillor to second. Councillor Rooks. Councillor Holstead.
Yes, Madam Mayor, thank you. I'm not even going to attempt to say Goran's second name, but I am a delegate on the Audit and Risk Committee, and I'm really grateful for the work that they do. They're highly professional, and I'm very comfortable with Goran being in that chair, so I recommend the recommendation.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Holstead. Councillor Rooks.
Nothing further to add.
Nothing further to add. Any other councillors wishing to discuss the recommendation? No? We put that to the vote, Councillor Holstead?
Yes, thank you.
Those in favour of the recommendation? Thank you. That's carried. Now we move to item 9 on the agenda, which is the statutory report. Can I request that a councillor move the statutory reports to be moved as a block? Councillor Ellis, a seconder. Councillor Rooks. Thank you. That items 9.1, 9.2, 9.3 and 9.4 be considered as a block. We'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? Thank you. Is there any discussion on any of those items in that block? No? Right. Request that a councillor we adopt the recommendations. I'd like to ask a councillor to move the recommendation. Councillor Ellis. Councillor Rooks. Thank you. We'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? Thank you. That's carried. Be adopted. Okay. There was item 10, urgent business. There was no urgent business. Now, the next meeting of council will be held here in the council chambers on the 21st of August this year, and that will commence at 1 p.m. So I now will read that the meeting be closed to members of the public pursuant to Section 66 of the Local Government Act 2020 to consider items as they deal with personal information, being information which is, if released, would result in unreasonable disclosure of information about any person or personal affairs. So, Councillor to move, Councillor Holstead. Councillor to second, Councillor Ellis.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Madam Mayor, I need to excuse myself. I'm not in a secured room. I'd like to take leave of the meeting.
Good. Thank you, Councillor Bauer. It's noted. We'll put you as apology. Sorry. So just to be clear, Councillor Holstead moved, Councillor Ellis second. Thank you. Put that to the vote. Thank you. That's carried. Thank you for watching the live streaming of the council meeting today. The meeting now will be closed to the public, and it will end the live streaming. Thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank you to the media.